Hello everyone and welcome back to the Shadow Clan Den. Shadowfang and Shadow Raven here, and today we are doing...
We're putting the generations in order from our favorite to our least favorite.
So, but we are going to start, and remember, this list is our opinion. We both start off with Generation 1, and yes, we are taking that into account with this.
Yeah.
But the criteria for this list are what size the Pokedex is. We want the overall Pokedex size,
or how good the Pokedex is, not really size. But
also in comparison to size.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you have a big Pokedex but not very many Pokemon that we like, then you're going to be a little bit low on the list, so on and so forth. The playability, that's just, how often do you have to grind, all that kind of stuff. Do you have to do a bunch of grinding? Are there a lot of Pokemon?
Do you have to travel all across the region to do stuff that seems irrelevant to the story?
Back and forth. Just the generic... Some of the generic stuff on that one.
Yeah.
Let me see. Dialogue is probably going to be one of the biggest factors. Not so much story-based, but how long is the dialogue? How, is it forced dialogue? Do you have to stay there and listen to it? Can you speed through it or not? And that's definitely gonna be, that one's gonna be a little bit heavy on this list, I think.
Big factor.
And then the final criteria for this one is going to be the villain team. And starting off.
So should we start with 1 and go to 6, or should we start from 6 and go to 1?
Let's stick with our standard 6 to 1.
All right. So we're starting at the bottom, going to best like always. In our opinion, like I said, this is just our opinion, and this is probably going to tick a lot of people off, especially those of you that are in your early 20s, late teens, stuff like that. Our least favorite gen
is Gen 4.
Is Gen 4. And like I said, a lot of you people that are in your early 20s, late teens, you probably started with Gen 4, okay? We have all the games for Gen 4, okay? And it's just... I'm working on Pearl right now, but it's like the third time I've tried to play this game. I think I've beaten Diamond, alright?
Skippy for you, I cannot beat those games.
I love the champion, I will say that. That's probably the best feature of Gen 4
is
Cynthia. I like her team, I like her character. That's probably the best thing about this generation. Let's go with the Pokedex. That's one of our first criteria on this thing. We just looked through this Pokedex before we did this. In my perspective, there's 10, maybe 12 Pokemon in the entire dex from this generation
Give or take. Not counting any legendaries.
No legendaries in this, okay? This Pokedex, to me, is crap. There's, from the most part that we saw, there's 4 to 5 Pokemon of each type. That's including first stage evolutions and so forth and so on. It's just not... the type with the most Pokemon...
is a grass.
Is grass, but
grass
only
types.
3, maybe 4 of those are even worth raising, at least in my opinion. Okay? It's just not a good Pokedex.
In my opinion, for this particular generation, the best ratio of usable Pokemon to Pokemon type in the Dex is actually the Ghost types. Mm-hmm. Because the Ghost types actually, for us at least, have the highest amount of Pokemon that we would use, despite the fact that it's actually one of the smaller groupings. I think there was a total of 7.
Same thing with Dark was kind of the same way. I think Dark had 2.
Ghost and Dark are the 2 that we would probably find the easiest to use.
But there's no fire types, there's no water type. There's one dragon that's not a legendary. Hello?
Garchomp. But at least he's worth it, though.
And
all things considered, he is worth it.
The villain team, I cannot stand Team Galactic. Their outfits are retarded. Their outfits are... To me, what they want to do is... The way they want to try and do what they're doing, to me, makes no... The red triangle, who the heck... The
red chain, you mean?
Yeah. That plot line is weird to me. I just don't like it. I don't like anything with the villain team.
And I think part of it is
the boss is easy. If you really think about it, I think the last time you fight him, his strongest Pokemon's level 40. So...
I'm pretty
sure...
sad, even for the leader.
I think when you take him on the mountain, I think his strongest Pokemon's like 40 or 42. So if you have your whole team to 45... You can kick his butt relatively easily. It's just not a good villain team. Another thing this Pokedex does kind of, this game has going for it, the dialogue is not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, dialogue
is... reasonably paced. It's a little slow in the beginning, but that's every single Pokemon game, let's be honest.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, dialogue for this one is probably, at least in our opinion, some of the best out of all 6 generations.
As far as pacing goes, that's how we're doing.
It's it's fairly consistent with timing. It's not too slow. It's not too fast. It's not like super expansive. I mean, you're not sitting there for 20 minutes pushing the A button, trying, yelling at the dang thing to shut the heck up and trying to go through. It's not. It doesn't have that issue, which I really appreciate. And I have relearned this with one of the other games I'm playing. Which I'll get to that in a little bit later.
And the ease play of this.
The ease of playability, in my opinion, is ridiculous. I cannot beat this game. I cannot get my Pokemon's levels high enough to beat this freaking game.
I mean, I'm replaying Pearl right now. I think I've got 6 badges, and I've got my whole team 35 to 43, I think, right now is where I'm at. Here's why this is so difficult. Victory Road is a little bit confusing as well. The Elite Four in this.
Can't say.
Okay, the first guy is a bug, Elite Four. You think it's going to be easy, right?
Nah.
You got a fire type. You should be able to burn him.
Nah.
His weakest Pokemon is level 53, I think. He goes from 53 to 57. That's the first Elite Four guy. And his Heracross will spam Rock Slide on you, and it's faster. It's so annoying. It's just the Elite Four is so hard. So you need to be at least 55 to even have a chance to get to Cynthia. Now Cynthia herself, like I said, she has a mixed team, which makes her a challenge, but she's not hard, I would say. You get past her Garchomp.
It's not impossible.
You get past her Garchomp and her Milotic, you can take her down, okay?
I've heard her Spiritom's actually given a lot of people trouble too, though.
Yeah, but if you're going with a bug type...
Not much of an issue.
Because it's part dark.
See, I don't know. As I said, I've made it to Victory Road, and
gameplay and plus
maybe partway through, and
plus the story.
No.
You're flying all over this region.
You're going from here.
You have to go
to over here.
From here.
Back over
first,
here.
you have to go through all the gyms like the normal. You have to climb a damn mountain. You have to walk through this foggy route, which is freaking pathetic. You have to fly to 2 of the lakes. 2 of the lakes which you have to help your rival, which is pathetic.
And then you have to actually beat Candace, I think, is in Steel Point. You have to beat Candace before you can even go to the link, because you need her badge so you can use Rock Climb.
You have to help Dawn twice, I think, because she gets her Pokemon stolen and her
Pokedex taken away. It's like, what the heck?
It's just the story is kind of lame, okay?
And your rivals are kind of meh.
They suck. Alright, so Gen 4, we're sorry. Gen 4 is number 6. Let's move on, because I could rant about Gen 4 all day long.
Yeah, well, we probably both could, actually.
Yeah.
Alright, number 5 is Generation 2. Now, Generation 2 has some of the problems that we have with Generation 4, but the main reason that Generation 2 made this particular spot is the ease of playability is probably some of the worst. I know what they were trying to do, because I guess people originally, way back when first generation first came out, I guess people were complaining that training was a little bit too easy. I'm not remembering it that way when I'm playing back now, when I play the digital version now, but it doesn't seem that way. But I don't know if maybe people were complaining that Pokemon's levels were a little bit too high in the next area, so they decided to drop them down in Generation 2. Well, this created the grinding effect. Translation, 10 hours of grinding for 1, maybe 2 badges.
And it's not the problem.
And that for me is the worst thing about it, actually.
The problem is the wild Pokemon aren't even close to being high enough
to really train off of in a reasonable amount of time.
Like right now, I'm in Kanto in this. I played this morning. I'm in Kanto. I have already got through the 4. I don't know how. I already got through that stuff. My strongest Pokemon is a level 52. 52, and I've got 13 badges now, I believe. Then I have 2 or 3 left.
Yeah, because you just beat Janine and Fuchsia.
No, I beat Brock after that.
Yeah.
So I should have. I think I have 13 badges now. My strongest Pokemon is level 52 or 53, somewhere like that. I should be into the 60s by that point. See, it's so hard to get your team about to level 50 and up. It's so hard. And the wild Pokemon are not. They don't give you enough experience.
Their levels aren't high enough to get you the experience that you need to get to those higher levels. So
hard.
And then, of course, if you really think about it, after getting all 16 badges, how long do you have? If you're okay, let's say your Pokemon are finally say, I mean, what are your levels usually after you go through the Elite Four the second time around? Maybe mid-60s-ish, give or take?
I try to, yeah.
Okay, so how much grinding do you have to do on Mount Silver just before you even have a shot at beating Red?
And Red's weakest Pokemon is at level 70? I think they just go from like 85 to 70.
I don't remember.
I think it's 85 to 70.
I think I have only gotten to the point where I was able to even take him on once, and I got
It's so hard. It really is. I think one thing they could have done to save it was give you access to Mount Silver a lot sooner. I think that would have made it
maybe
so
after the Elite Four the first time around. That would be nice.
I think that would have made it so much better.
But
I like the story. I love Silver. Or the rival.
Your rival Silver is definitely the best.
Rival.
I actually think that him and Gary are probably the best rivals in the entire series. Despite the fact they're both buttheads. Yeah. But, I mean, you can't win everything.
Yeah, it's just...
But they're definitely the best rivals.
The wild Pokemon in that game aren't worth it.
Level-wise.
That's the main reason this game is so low.
It's just because of the ease of playability.
The Pokedex, I think, is relatively decent. I like 2 out of the 3 starters. I love the introduction of Umbreon, even though it's kind of hard to get one, but I love the Dark typing introduction there.
Some of our favorite Pokemon come from this generation. My baby is Houndoom.
And the introduction of the Steel type, which I have grown to love my Steel types.
Yes, he does.
So, but the main reason is it's just the playability is so hard. It's so tedious.
And even then, villain-wise, you're really repeating from Generation 1, but it's actually kind of nice. I mean, in a way, I kind of wish they had done a separate villain, but at the same time, I'm actually kind of glad that they didn't.
Yeah.
Just because I liked seeing, that other... it's like, I actually liked seeing, it's like, okay, so Team Rocket was disbanded, but then they actually got back together in a different region, and I liked seeing that potential for villain expansion. And it's something that I think should be implemented anyway, but yeah, I think that, I have to agree with you on that. Definitely. I really do think they should expand on that a little bit more.
Yep, definitely.
Number 4 is Gen 5. And this is actually the one that I'm playing right now. This is where now Gen 5. Let's start off with the Pokedex. For the most part, the Pokedex is actually pretty freaking decent. There's some really good, there's some decent stuff in there.
The lack of fire types is kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think we counted 5 fire types.
It's got your dragons are good. Mm-hmm. It's got some good dark types. It's got some decent ghosts.
Chandler.
It's got some decent steel types. Fire and water are lacking.
Grass is completely useless.
That's the biggest problem with the Pokedex.
With the Pokedex, yes, not with the actual game.
Grass
but with the Pokedex
Pokemon
are useless,
except for Ferrothorn, because he's part steel. Other than that, though,
grass types are virtually
Pokemon
useless.
Are worthless in this version. Now, in Pokemon Black 2, it's better because there is a water gym near the end.
Where you actually would need, or at least potentially need a water grass type, but still, you can counter that with an electric type.
Yeah, but grass types are virtually
useless.
Which
stinks because I love Superior's design.
And I love its speed.
It's
evasion's freaking awesome.
I think it has the potential to be a great Pokemon, but I think it was introduced in the wrong generation simply because it's useless. I mean, there is really no feasible place where you could use a grass type, except for maybe a Cutter, and that's and even then you only need Cut in the very first, the Dream Yard by Striaton City, but that's it. I mean, that's
like I said,
it's sad.
And another thing about the Pokedex that kind of kills this game: the starting wild Pokemon. You don't get a good wild Pokemon, in my opinion, until you get to the Nimbasa Forest.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I will call Route 4. Route 4 is probably my starting point.
Well, in the Nimbasa Forest, at least you can get some
Pinwheel Forest.
Pinwheel Forest, my bad.
Pinwheel Forest, yeah.
That was my fault.
Yeah, we have to go with Pinwheel Forest because
at least then you can get Venipede. Stolipedes are freaking awesome. But,
I know, I'm raising one right now.
Your starting bird and your starting normal types are just pathetic.
And one thing that drives
so pathetic.
One thing that drives us nuts though is that if you catch a Lillipup, for the most part, and we've done this with several different natures and all that.
I even had the last one I had a bold nature, which I believe is an attacking
nature.
Special defense drop, which should have been perfect. it still sucked.
That's because, you know, and then the worst part of it, though, is that, you know, if you raise a Lillipup into a Herdier, then you're thinking it's like, okay, so this thing's going to be pretty good because almost every single one you encounter in the game whoops you with very little issue. Yours...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm honest to God, I'm surprised that mine is still even on my team, because right now I have a Herdier on my team, and I'm actually surprised that thing's putting in as much work as it is.
But then you got Chatot, or Patrat, where they had that stupid thing.
Patrat and Watchog, and
it's stupid.
Yeah. Why is Lenora so powerful, and yet yours
Purloin that's just worthless.
Which really stinks, because, you know, Purloin and Leopard are really good looking, and they're really sassy looking dark types, and I really like my dark types. Their stats.
Another thing that kills it. You don't get a good bird until way late in the game, where you can get either Rufflet or Vullaby.
Definitely the best bird
is not worth raising.
I mean, Pidove is okay, but then its evolution, as it evolves, though, I swear its stats seem to drop. Be nice to Glaceon.
Stay. Another thing that really kills this. We'll get to the good stuff here in a second.
We're working on it.
Another thing that kills this game is the dialogue. It's got the worst dialogue of all the games. It's just nothing but talk, and it's so annoying.
Part of it, though, is not only is there so much dialogue, so much of it you can't avoid. Okay, now starting off, I mean, that's kind of to be expected, but even then, in Gen 5, there's more dialogue than usual, and not only do you not, I mean, sure, you get your Pokemon in your house, there's a bunch of talking, and then you have one battle, and then there's a little bit more talking, you have another battle, then your friends go down and say, oh, let's go apologize to your mom. So your friends go down and ditch you. That's probably one of my biggest things with this, is that your friends are constantly ditching you and stuff that you're all supposed to be doing together. But they ditch you, go downstairs, so you have to go downstairs, and then you apologize to your mom, then they leave you again, they go over to, and
they're standing right outside your door.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they get you again, and you meet them in front of the professor's place.
Well, then you have to go down to Bianca's house first. God. So then you have to go down to her house, then go back up, and then you have to and then you go in, talk to the professor, there's some more talking there, and then you have to go over all the way back to the beginning of Route 1, which of course they ditch you again inside, and then they ditch you again right outside the freaking door. And it's like, all of this, it's like the first, 20 minutes of the 20 minutes of the game?
Is that
maybe not 20 minutes.
Town?
Not even. That's before. That's
and
the very
you run
first
into the villain. You're running into the main villain.
Getsis, there's another 3 or 4 minutes of just him.
It's just him ranting. It's like this through the entire game. It's just pointless dialogue.
I mean, it's not necessarily
It's not pointless, but it's too drawn out.
It's drawn out, it's excessive, and you can't avoid it.
It really slows the pace of the game down.
It does, and it's like, I was early, I think, when did I restarted yesterday, I think, and I was sitting there in just the first 5-6 minutes of the game, give or take, just button mashing. It's like, shut up, I want to get to the, and it's just on and on. I do this every single time I restart either White or White 2, and it's just, I'm constantly just button mashing, trying to get through all this dialogue as fast as possible, because they don't shut up.
Now, let's get to the good stuff about this generation. I love the story.
The story is freaking amazing.
Probably the best storyline out of all the games. I love it.
It's definitely up there. I think it actually does.
It's an awesome story.
It is probably the best story.
I love the story. That's part of one reason I still play. And even the storyline in Black 2 and White 2 is good. Where they try to capture Tyrion to take control of his ice powers and freezing everything. I love it. I love the stories of both the games. I think the stories are freaking awesome,
amazing,
which is a huge redeeming factor in this.
And it's why it's not any lower.
Yeah. But like I said,
despite the dialogue issue, and that I think is probably the biggest issue, and then some of the minor Pokedex issues. The villain team overall is kind of, I mean, they're kind of average.
Okay,
I mean, if they would shut the hell up, I think I might like them just a little bit more.
Is so hard.
Oh my god. Okay, I think the worst
boss battle ever
is Getsis.
It's so
easily
hard.
is Getsis.
This hydrogen will F you up. That thing
outspeeds
nuts.
Everything.
You have to be the level. Your whole team has to be 55 or up to even have a chance.
Yeah, and for him, it's that hydrogen. That thing will just slaughter your
kill
team.
Everything.
I mean,
that is Buffon.
Yeah. Oh.
Getsis is so hard.
Move
All right.
on. Nah, too
Let's
much.
move on.
Number 3. Generation 6. Yep. Going to Kalos.
Now, I know a lot of people are bitching about this.
Yeah, I can hear now. It's like,
It
Generation
was too
6?
easy.
Yes, it was easy.
And
That's one of the reasons I like it. It has a
here's the
little bit
reason.
of a
They
challenge,
made-
but not too much of one that I don't feel like I'm gonna freaking die every single time.
Here's the thing, and no offense to other YouTube creators and content creators out there, we enjoy watching you guys, but would you please stop complaining that Gen 6 was too easy, especially about the Pokedex or the experience share feature.
Okay, now let's focus a little bit on this, and we'll probably do this in a different video too. Okay, the experience share in Generation 6. For those of you who are old enough to remember, like we are,
That should be
in Generation 1, you had to catch 50 Pokemon before you could talk to this aide before, but you needed 50 Pokemon, and he would give you an item called the Experience All. Now this worked as long as it was in your bag. All 6 of your Pokemon would get experience from this. They changed it in Generation 2 to the item, which I hate. I don't like the item. I actually think it takes twice as long. But in Gen 6, they brought back the original method that they had been using in Generation 1. I flipped when I realized this. I was ecstatic.
Awesome.
That was actually one of the features that I missed the most. It's like, I don't like the experience share being an item because I think it takes even longer. But when you have the experience share as a set item in your bag that affects your entire team all at once, oh my god, training is so much easier.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are complaining about having to constantly turn it on and turn it off. I do wish that there was a feature for those people that really don't like it, could at least deposit the item or whatnot.
Yeah. But coming from a Gen 1 perspective, and that's where we started, okay?
Yep.
You know, a lot of you started with Gen 2 or Gen 4, so you liked it as an item.
Because that's what you started off as. We started off with it as an item that sat in your bag and affected your entire team.
And
so
even
for
in
us,
Gen
this
1,
was...
it was still hard, because trying to get your team to level 50 or higher for the Elite Four,
even with the experience all,
was still kind of hard.
Although I will say there is one feature that they did with the experience all that they're not doing with this one that I kind of like, but I kind of don't. Because in the other one, you actually could see the amount, with the experience all, it showed you the amount of experience that every single Pokemon got.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I like it is because I know exactly who got how much. I don't like it because it was every single time, and after a point, it's like, okay, it's just, it began to get to be one of those button matching things. So I'm kind of glad they left that out, but at the same time, I kind of
Another reason, you know, Gen 6, the Pokemon designs on Gen 6 are freaking awesome. I love it. I'm neutral toward the fairy, okay? I'm neutral toward the fairy. I think it's an unnecessary typing. I know they wanted to give dragons something else to fear, but here's the problem I have with this typing. Fairies have 2 major weaknesses, and fire does some okay damage.
Yeah, fire's...
And here's another thing that I don't like about the fairies. Fairies decimate dragons, fighting,
dark,
and dark. Poor dark types here have too many weaknesses. So that's why I do not like this. I understand where they're going with the fairy, but to me,
just a smidge of a couple of slight alterations, and I think that'd be great. That and another problem that I have with the fairy type in general. Okay, there are so many fairy types there are so many dual type fairies that can't even learn fairy moves. It's like it's like, okay, I really have to question the logic. It's like, okay, so
can learn 1.
It's like, why would you give this Pokemon a fairy type without allowing it to learn any fairy type moves?
Oh, the fairy type moves a lot of 1 type. I'd say there's no room. They're not that good anyway. Like,
well, there are a few really good ones.
Gramble can learn Play Rough,
which is actually a pretty good
Which is probably
move.
the best one. That's it.
Well, I mean,
that's
physical.
That's
physically
all
speaking.
they can learn is Play Rough. It's like, okay, you took it from a normal type and made it normal fairy, but you
not
can
even
have it.
It's pure fairy, I think.
Or whatever, but they can learn 1 fairy move. How the hell does that make any sense?
It really doesn't, and that's something that there's several Pokemon that only used to be single type and now have that fairy subtyping, and they can't really learn any good fairy moves, if any fairy moves at all.
I will say the reason this game is number 3, because to me there really isn't a lot wrong with it. I think the worst thing about Gen 6 was the story. It's I don't know how is it hurried? I guess now I can put it, because
it is. It's like there's sections of it where it takes a little. There's some sections where it seems to be a little bit longer. They seem to kind of take their time with it, but at the same time, it seems like they took too much time with that. So the next part, they kind of rushed through it a little bit.
The pace of the game was very off. Especially
the pacing was definitely
especially between gyms. You can get your 4th gym, and then you go on to Route 13, and right after that, boom, you get your 5th gym. Mm-hmm. The pacing...
But between first gym and then second gym...
That's the longest part of the game. That's the longest part of the game.
That's definitely one of the longest stretches between, but then all the rest of them are almost, bam, 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 right off the bat.
So the pacing was
was off, definitely.
That's the biggest thing wrong with this gen.
And then the villain team. I mean, Team Flare... I mean, I can kind of understand where they're coming from, but overall, I mean, it's
just not a very good team. At least not in my opinion. They just don't. They're not evil enough to me. They look more dopey than anything.
They're idealistic, and they have, they know what they want to do, or at least the grunts, of course. The grunts never really seem to know what's going on, except for in Team Rocket. Team Rocket grunts always know everything.
And I did love the introduction of the Mega types. So that was
definitely something done. That was something done right, and that was something we were kind of worried about too when we first saw that. We were like, okay, I'm not so sure. Now, pretty decent feature. We like it. It's definitely a good feature.
All right, now we're getting to the top 2 here. So
these 2 were very close.
Very close. It was very hard to actually do this.
Number 2 is Generation 1.
Mm-hmm. I'd say Pokedex wise, I think this one and our number 1, but you could probably already guess what it is. Are pretty dang close as far as how many Pokemon in this Pokedex I would raise or she would raise or whatever. I think the amount is pretty dang even between these 2 generations. I like all 3 starters in both of these last 2 generations. I'm more partial toward certain types than others in these next 2 starter groups, but as a whole,
I mean, aren't we all though?
As a whole, yeah. But as a whole, though, I would raise any of these 3 starters from these last 2 generations without question. These 3 starters in both of these last 2 generations are freaking awesome. Especially Venusaur. Venusaur's the bomb. I love it. The story in Gen 1, it's not complicated, obviously, because it was made back in the 90s, okay? But you have Team Rocket, who wants to control all the Pokemon in the region.
See, I actually think that for Generation 1...
But it works.
I actually think Generation 1 has the simplest story because it literally... This was the story. You get the gym badges, you beat the bad guys, you become the champion. That was the story. I mean, that is literally the base. That is literally the base on which Pokemon is created. They still maintain this as kind of like that underlying base story.
Base of what they build on.
But now they've actually built in a lot more stuff to it. Generation 1, the original generation, that was the story. Is just kind of the underlying base for everything else, which I really kind of like.
And like I said, the dialogue is not terrible. I think the worst is probably the beginning. But other than that, though, your dialogue is it's pretty well paced. Mm-hmm. You have you battle your rival like 5 times, which I think is good. And I think the Pokedex is freaking awesome.
Yeah, the Gen 1 Pokedex is pretty balanced. There
are not very many Pokemon in that generation that I will not raise. I mean, there's a couple. I don't really like, I don't like Clefable, and I don't really like Tangle that much. But for the most part, Gen 1 Pokedex, to me, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, even for 150 Pokemon, there's actually a fairly decent variety.
Yeah.
151, pardon me.
Yeah.
151, either way.
Mm-hmm.
But, way back then. Yeah, it was 150. Man, now we're up to 721, I think.
Yeah,
Holy crap. Over 20 years. It goes from 150 all the way up to 721. That's progress.
Yep.
And then for the ease of playability, I mean, I'm playing both Yellow and Red right now.
Yellow was a pain.
Yellow was a
Yellow
pain.
seemed to be a lot.
It
Well,
really
Yellow
was.
harder because they
The
raised
levels
all
were
the
higher.
gym levels.
They increased the levels of the gym,
And it's
of all the
crazy.
gyms and such.
Especially like Surge, they raised them up 4
28.
levels. Come on, seriously?
One Pokemon, yeah, but he's level 28.
But
And then once again, you kind of run into a similar problem with Gen 2. At least that's what I'm running into. Is that the Pokemon are a little bit they're not providing the amount of experience I'm needing to get up to these higher levels.
yeah.
But it's still, I still remember it being a lot of fun. And I will say it does seem to be a little bit harder now. But I think part of it is because it's coming after Gen 6,
Yeah,
which
so we're
is a
kinda
lot
having to-
easier.
we're
So we're
having
having
to
to
get used to
readjust back to that
we're doing.
higher difficulty setting. So.
Alright, our favorite gen, and like I said, this was very close between these two, as I'm sure you probably already guessed, is Gen 3. Once again, now the story-wise, I think it's a little bit simplistic. I think they could have
Elaborated just a smidge more on
elaborated a
it.
little bit on it. Now, and someone, one of my Poketubers this morning said that, I think Gen 3 is boring. I don't think it's boring as it's simplistic.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. The Pokedex is freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, I actually introduced him to one of his new favorite water types from this generation. He actually, what
My
was
favorite Mega.
your favorite Mega?
Mega Swampert, baby.
Yeah, he loves Mega Swampert.
Mega Swampert's a
And
monster.
it's funny because I actually played the original Sapphire when it first came out.
I wasn't able to because I could never get a Game Boy Advance.
But, so his first actual playthrough of Gen 3 was these new remakes. And granted, he already liked Groudon because, I mean, come on, it's like one of his favorites. Appearance-wise, he fell in love with it right off the bat, so he claimed Ruby, and I had no problem. I was going with Alpha Sapphire again anyway. But, I mean, this was really his first time playing it, and I kept telling him. And after I had done a little bit of experimentation on my own, I told him, you have got to raise a Milotic. He fell in love with it. He thought he was going to hate it just because it was one of those that's kind of a pretty Pokemon.
Well,
yeah,
plus
until I
plus-
swept him with it.
Well, not just that. I thought I thought it was just a rip-off of Gyarados, but I think it's actually better than Gyarados.
I'd say it's probably Gyarados' female equivalent.
I just think it's better.
I personally always think
yeah,
that
the
Gyarados
Pokedex
should be a
in
male and
Gen
Milotic should be its
3
partner, but that's
The
just me.
Pokedex, I've raised
Most of that.
pretty much the entire dex, and there's a couple that I won't because I've tried them and they're really sucky, like Spinda. No offense. but the Pokedex is very good. The story is good but simple. It's got two villain teams, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I actually really wish they would kind of expand on that because that's definitely one of my favorite aspects about Gen 3 is it takes into account 2 separate games, so they did 2 separate teams.
Yep.
But yet the teams are not completely separated from each other because they're both teams are in both versions. You only work with one
team
or
is
the
trying
other.
to stop the other the
And
same way you are, which I kind of like that.
And I actually kind of wish that they would implement that feature again.
It's fun.
That's
and
one
once
feature
again,
I think is really
starters are
kinda
freaking awesome. To me, the worst one is Sceptile, but he's even not even that bad, which is weird because I usually love my grass stars. Just out of these 3, I just think Sceptile's the worst out of the 3, but you still can't really.
I mean, saying he's the worst, it's really just in comparison to the other 3 because Sceptile himself is still
really awesome. I'm not saying it's not a bad starter by any means.
He's just his least favorite.
I'm just
starter.
comparing it to the 3. He's my least favorite. But
either way, he's still freaking amazing, all things considered.
But yeah, I think that's it for this video. We're a little bit over a half hour here. That's like I said. Please don't get mad. This is our opinion.
Well, you can. I mean, that's your right
You
to
can get mad if you
but,
want. I'm going to ignore it. So leave a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Please subscribe. Hope you enjoyed. And we're going to try and get some more content up today. Sorry for being delayed. We've just been going through a lot. We're trying to move.
Stuff has been going crazy.
Stuff's been going on. So we apologize for the lack of uploads. We will try and get back to it. But that's it for now, and we will see you a little bit later.
Happy hunting!